And this is a difficult meeting for most of us here today. Commissioner Judy Williams, past chair of this planning commission, passed away this last week from coronavirus, which is very sad for us. She spent a lot of time here, and even before, she spent a lot of time. In 1972, Judy took a job with Cobb County in the Planning and Zoning Division, and she worked there for 28 years till she retired in 2000. And then she she did run for county commissioner at that time, but she dropped out of the race to take care of her husband who became ill. And then in 2001, she was back and joined the Planning Commission. So she would have, had her 20th anniversary on the Planning Commission this year. And if you put together all those years, that's, I believe, roughly 48 years doing zoning here in Cobb County. And if you think about that time period, there was roughly about 200,000 people in Cobb County when Judy became involved in zoning. And that's when Cobb County became involved in zoning, because Cobb County adopted the first zoning ordinance in 1972. So she's really been here from the start of planning and zoning for the county. If you look, we've almost quadrupled our population in the time. And just to give you a little perspective, I-75 was still being built in Cobb County at the time, and we didn't have, neither of the malls were open, and that's it really speaks to a big change. And then to come back and serve 20 years on the Planning Commission, and almost 20 and almost 19 years on the Board of Zoning Appeals, you just don't find, many people like that who are that dedicated and put nearly 50 years of their life into something. So, for all of us, we're losing, a planning commission, but more importantly, we're losing a friend. But she was also really a historian for us, a walking historian, because if we were ever working on a case and said, why did they do that back in 1980 or 1970 that way, Judy would know. And she would, pop up and say, oh, that was done because. So there is one person in our audience today who worked with Judy in one fashion or another for almost that entire time, and that's Garvis Sams. He's one of our local zoning attorneys, but in 1974 he became a Cobb County employee at that time. And I've asked him to come forward and just say a few words. He was close to Judy.
First of all, lawyers don't say just a few words, but good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. Good to see you this morning. For the record, my name is Garvis Sams, and also for the record, although it doesn't need any official memorialization, Judy Williams will always be my friend. Interestingly enough, I came to work after college for the DA's office. I had no desire to go to law school whatsoever and repeat in the footsteps of my father or come back and live in this city, but luckily Buddy Darden gave me a job, offered me one. I met Judy. I was virtually a gopher for the DA's office, although call investigator, and we got to be fast friends at that time. And then ultimately, when I became an attorney, I was lucky enough to be associated with the county attorney's office. Our firm represented the county until from 1979 to 1987. And during that period of time, I found out that she was not only a fast friend, but just a vast compendium of knowledge, as Mr. Chairman just pointed out, and perhaps most significantly, she's the shining light that really illuminated what's best and what's good and great about Cobb County. Judy was irrepressible. She was irreverent. She was insightful. She was intuitive. She had a sharp tongue. But it was a tongue that was used in a way to rehabilitate, to help people understand, and to make them familiar enough with the process to feel comfortable. Because to many people that don't do this every day like we do, it's a foreign process, and it was important for Judy to enlighten the folks as they came through this process. When she was with zoning, and our careers coincided, I was with the county attorney's office, I used Judy as my expert witness. She could wear a developer's hat, an appraiser's hat, a planner's hat, an architect's hat, a lawyer's hat. And so we used her as a cleanup batter. And sometimes objections would come as to whether she was an expert, but to a judge, she was always declared as an expert in her respective field. And as they say, as a cleanup hitter, she knocked it out of the park every time and did her best to be unshakable. And in fact, I'll have to say that I've had many attorneys at the time that said that she was what they would call a rattlesnake on cross-examination, and I know Fred understands that. You just didn't ask the question you didn't know the answer to. But she was tough as nails, just as sweet as she could be. She dedicated her life to her faith and her family first, her community second, and the county third. But she was a source of strength for the county, the backbone of the county. The phraseology, she knows where all the bodies are buried, she knows where all the bodies are buried, is absolutely true. To say that Judy will be missed is an understatement. To say that she'll be forgotten is a ludicrous statement, because I'll never forget her. And seeing her photograph there with the flowers and memoriam, I want to thank the Planning Commission and Planning Commissioners and staff for remembering her in that way. She would appreciate it. She learned it. She cherished it. And I think it's irrebuttable that she was a shining light for this county then and now, and will be in the future. I miss our calls. She didn't like to work on the weekend. It's my weekend, leave me alone. But I miss our Sunday evening calls. I miss our meetings. I miss our texts. She gave the best pre-COVID hugs of anybody you could ever imagine, so I miss those as well. And I want you all to remember her son Keith, who's been a backbone for the family during this ordeal, and of course her daughter-in-law Teresa, her two grandchildren Amber and Emily, and then she had a great grandson named Lucas, who she was just a little bit proud of, and so I understand that, having grandchildren myself. In some instances, in recognition of the passing of someone, you'll have a moment of silence. Well, Judy wouldn't last 20 seconds with a moment of silence, so she would say, get on with your life, get on with your work. Don't forget me, please remember me, but do so in the kind of light that I would remember you. So, Madam Chairman, bless your heart, we love you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Garvis. It was a fine tribute.